Hello, my chicklets. Thank you for stopping by. Today we are going to be reading part 6 of the Dark Side Logan series. We are almost done with this series. There is only one more installment left. After that, I will be reading a few of Nad98's other stories. So let me go ahead and read to you Apologize. In Logan's warmth and his stillness, Remus began to doze off. He usually needed his ritual to go to sleep, but with Logan by his side and the immense relief that his confession had brought him, still was getting closer to him, and he let it come and take him. He didn't know how much time passed. It still didn't matter to him. It still didn't matter because there was no termites eating his skin. It didn't matter because there were no screams bursting his eardrums. It didn't matter because the stillness didn't threaten to swallow him. It didn't matter because he mattered to Logan. And right now, that was more than enough. He hadn't been enough for anyone in a long time. And for once, that was enough for his mind to calm down a little and let him have a dreamless sleep for the first time in years. Well, maybe he wasn't quite asleep. He was too consciously aware of the warm presence of Logan in his arms, on his lap, against his chest. Really, this had to be better than sleep could ever have been. Of course, it wouldn't last. Remus. He blinked his eyes open. His legs were definitely deep asleep, and he wasn't quite sure if he would ever feel his arms again, but he didn't mind. They were an easy sacrifice to give in exchange for having Logan by his side. What am I witnessing here? Remus tried to focus. His chest felt heavy, and he finally could tell which direction the voices were coming from. Moving as little as possible, he turned his head to look at Lucas and Janus. They didn't look pleased. Fuck off. Remus. Patronizing, scolding, looking at him as if he was a little child, as if they were both just two silly children. He's mine. Dear Kant, how did this happen, Lucas? While I'm all for making our dear little Logan feel better, this cannot be what you had in mind, can it now? I'm not his fucking keeper, Snake, and you can't expect me to be— Stop being noisy! Gently, he guided his hand through Logan's hair. He hadn't raised his voice, simply hissed at the others as he tried to keep his Logan asleep, to keep him at the fragile peace they had finally found within each other. Okay, yeah, we were rude, Lucas admitted, half whispering, and walked over to Remus and Logan. Remus kept an eye on him, but soon let his focus dart to Janus, who was watching them skeptically. Sober enough to judge me? Because you certainly won't dare to judge Logan here. I'm sure you don't have the audacity to judge him for indulging his crippled and starved emotions for once, after that little stunt you pulled on him for your benefit. Janus's eyes glowed in a gloomy yellow and Remus's sparked in a poisonous green. Despite himself, Lucas began to grin, despite him knowing that a fight right now would do no good at all. But the elation that came from them both getting so worked up was just so tempting. After months and months of the coldness and indifference Janus had directed to them both, unless they did something really stupid. Remus. No. I'm not playing this game. I know what I'm doing, and I don't care about the consequences. He loves me. He promised me to stay even if he falls out of love. None of you ever gave me that, and I'm far too impulse-driven to not take that. I mean, even if I weren't, I'd hold him as long as he let me. I love him. Lucas giggled. Janus's lips twitched and his eyes hardened. He truly was sober for once, explaining why he seemed to be in such a foul mood. Love is nice and well, Janus started, and folded his hands in front of him. But this isn't going to work out, Remus. He cannot stay here forever. They will need him back, and I don't know when they will be ready to accept you as well. This is good now, but once Logan has to go back, this will be torture for the both of you. It will do you better to break this off before you get too attached. Ah, bummer. I'm already too attached, Snakey. I'd kill for him. I'm scared for him. I'm scared that we won't manage to fix this, and he actually will have to go through the horror of becoming one of us. That he'll live in this god-forlorn place with the cold, the shadows, the beasts that have pushed you to the bottom of the glass. Him into glitching and me into insanity, and most of all, I'm scared that he'd be happy with that. Come on, it can't be that much better up there. At once the anger in the room grew stale. Janus looked away and Remus gave Lucas a sad glance. They both had felt what it was like to be recognized by Thomas, what it felt like to be outside of the mindscape, what the warmth of being real only for just a few moments felt like. Lucas had never felt it, and as it was, possibly never would. At least, never as himself. It's hard to explain, Lou. It's like nothing you've ever felt before. Leaves you vulnerable in a weird mush, but like good? You'll get a taste for it when you go up there as him. What? Remus held Logan closer. Lucas took a step away from Janus and balled his fists as he glared at the floor. In disbelief, Janus gasped, looking at Lucas and then at Remus. The hardness and unwavering force in Remus's eyes threw Janus off, and he noticed how his own hands were shaking. He was cold. Slowly, he slung his arms around himself and forced his fingers into the fabric of his capelet. His eyes singled in on Lucas's form. He was paler than Virgil was at his worst time. His energy was all over the place in a frenzy that was long beyond healthy. At this point, saving Logan might literally be the last thing Lucas was going to do, and Janus's body ached familiarly. You will. Janus's eyes darted back to Remus. Lucas will take Logan's place. That is your plan? Remus just lifted his chin defiantly, and Janus began to snicker hysterically. Steal my brand. Imitate the behavior which made Virgil and Roman distrust me so deeply that they kept roasting Thomas constantly for little white lies, which made them even encourage him to ignore the chance he had with Nico in the mall. Really, that is your plan. I cannot believe how idiotic you've got. What is wrong with you? Remus's voice growled through the room, and tentacles and vines raised from the floor and grappled Janus's limbs. The snake wasn't bothered, however, and simply snarled back. Nothing at all. My sanity is incarcerate. It's not like my function forces me to lie, imitate, and manipulate at times when I really would prefer to be sincere. It's not like I've become a pathological liar who no one, not even my closest friends, trust anymore. Oh, boo-hoo. Poor little Snakey is just as fucked up as the rest of us, despite holier-than-thou morality finally listening to him. Who would have thought that there were consequences to living a whole fucking life in the depths of the subconscious? Golden tears were streaming down Janus's face. His nose clogged as he screamed. The vines withered and the tentacles shivered away as scorching white light emanated from Janus. Remus had pushed Logan off himself and stood protectively in front of him. Neither he nor Janus noticed how Lucas cowered on the floor, with his hands folded over his head, shivering like a leaf in the wind. It wasn't a choice. I didn't put us here. I never sealed our fates. You left. You let them leave us. You let them leave me. Janus choked. Remus's hand dug into his air pipe. He could feel his lungs screaming for air. His chest heaved with panic and his mind growing dizzy. Remus had come so fast that he couldn't have dodged him, and he was strong, so strong, and Janus was tired, so tired, and dizzy. He should submit. He should quit. He should just let go. He should just cease this tomfoolery at once. Janus was yanked to the floor and yapped for air. Remus loudly sucked in his breath, and at once Janus realized whose voice he had just heard. With terror in his heart, Janus looked up at Logan. The side was standing between him and Remus, holding Remus's sash tightly in his grip and staring down at him with an electric blue glow in his eyes. In his loose sweatshirt and jogging pants, with his crooked glasses and ruffled hair, he should have been a picture of pity and weakness, not the most terrifying thing in the entire room. Apologize. Janus tried to scramble to his feet, but his shaking knees kept him from getting up. Weakly, he looked at Remus, who was as white in the face as Roman's costume. With a gulp, he began to address him, opened his mouth to speak, to do whatever Logan asked for, as the latter suddenly spoke once more. Not to him. With one swoop, he pulled Janus to his feet and turned him and Remus around to see the bundle of an orange hoodie cowering next to the couch. Apologize to him. Whatever you said to each other is your own business, but don't you dare pull an innocent third into your mess. I will not stand for it. Lucas looked up. He trembled, smiled, and tears were dirtying up his glasses. Remus flinched at the view and immediately stepped toward him. Lucas twitched, and Remus dropped awkwardly to his knees as Logan kept holding on to him. Lou. I'm sorry. Did we hurt you? Did I get you somehow with the vines or my tentacles? Lucas shook his head. Hearing a heart-wrenching whimper, both turned to look and saw Janus covering his mouth as he began to cry again. Wide-eyed, he stared at the two of them, stared at what he believed to be the remains of his family, stared at what he had done to them. Did I hurt you? Lucas shook his head again. Lie. Janus let his hand drop and openly cried in front of them, only kept standing by Logan's strong grip. I did. I never apologized for it. I made Virgil leave. I made all of this worse. I began to play those games in the name of Thomas's mental health, even though I don't know if it will work or not. I would say I'm sorry, but that would give you the allowance to forgive me, and you shouldn't. I don't deserve it. You do. And even if you didn't, this is not your call to make. Forgiveness is not earned, it's given. If Lucas so chooses, he shall forgive you. That is not for you to decide. At once, Logan let go of them. Janus dropped to the floor like a wet blanket. To his surprise, he was caught by Lucas, who held him clumsily in his arms, never letting his eyes drift away from Logan. The logical side watched them. His attention sat on Lucas and Janus, taking in something neither could understand. Then his focus shifted to Remus, and something grew gentler. The echo and distortion in his voice almost sounded fond when he addressed him. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. You're hurt, both of you. I don't think I can fix it right now. The exhaustion is coming back. I'll rest, so you can do what is necessary to get better. I trust you. I forgive you. I might forgive him too. Just promise me not to hurt each other anymore. It pains me. Logan's eyelids fell shut. Baffled, the three dark sides watched him grow slack and sink to the floor in slow motion, cradled by a dark navy mist. Softly he reached the floor, eyes closed, and his chest rising and sinking peacefully with sleep just as it had done a few minutes prior. The three dark sides didn't feel peaceful, though. Subconsciously, Lucas pressed the trembling Janus against his chest. Beside them, Remus crawled towards Logan's still body. Wordlessly, he began to scan him for changes. He looked at every inch of bare skin he could see until he was sure that he had been through enough and softly began to tap him down. It wasn't silent as Remus worked. Whimpers came from behind him. Whimpers he knew were Janus's, even though he hadn't heard them too often. He maybe only heard him cry once out in the open, and that was the 17th day after Virgil left. It's been a while. Rem. Yeah? You haven't found anything on him? Remus halted, his hands hovering over Logan's chest, and he let himself stare at his face. Careful, he moved to take off his glasses. No. Only thing that might be different are the eyes, and I think they're the same. The cries quieted, shuffling, wet huffs, and the sound of a few creaking joints. Feather-light feet on the floor. A white glow appeared from behind. Fuzzy, prickling, it encased his bruised arms. He could feel it seep through his skin, reaching for the bandaged-up tentacles in his conceptual body. It didn't break through immediately. It poked and waited for an answer. You may. Janus healed him. When he was done, he helped Remus to pick Logan back up and carried him to the couch, where Remus sat down and first had Logan's head placed on his lap. He just looked down at him, listening to the other two. Janus kept standing, and Lucas sat on the armchair. He could feel their eyes on him. That was Tempest's tongue, or am I going crazy? It wasn't. Janus's answer came as a hiss, and he cleared his throat. Excuse me. You're right. It was, but he hasn't changed yet, has he? The subconscious hasn't taken a liking to him quite yet. No, and I won't let it take him. It's early. We can still make it. A moment of silence passed. Yeah. Janus walked towards him. He laid his hand on Remus's shoulder and leaned down. As Remus didn't stop him, he lowered himself further and pressed a light kiss on Logan's temple. He straightened up a moment after and turned to walk out of the room. No word will leave my lips. I hope you'll succeed. Maybe I'll pray for it even. With the snake left, Remus and Lucas didn't care much for it. Both of them were caught in their own head. Lucas was rattled by a fight that had made him feel more than he had felt in the past year. Rattled by the heavy reality of the other's anger and frustration. Rattled by the one side, too weak to stand up for himself, obliterating all the animosity for Lucas's weak ass. Remus was sinking in love, not falling, no. Falling was for air, for a rapid descent and a harsh impact. Sinking was fuzzier, slower, with more resistance and more drowning. It was what Logan did to him, and frankly, it was the best way to die he had fantasized about in years. They remained in the living room for hours, Lucas joining Remus and Logan on the couch after one. Remus slung his arm around him and took off his glasses as he fell asleep after some time. He himself followed after half an hour. It was night when Logan stirred. The darkness in the shadows was tickling him, and he blinked his eyes open slowly. In the dimness of the hour, he could only make out the outlines of the two sides who were huddled around him. He had the couch switch into a bed with a grin, summoning some blankets as well. Quietly he placed them over the two and himself, making sure that both of them were covered nicely. He also checked for any injuries, just to be sure. When he was done, he huddled against Remus's side. He wasn't sure how he had done it, but today he had managed to get his point across and stop bad things from happening. Not in the way he wished, maybe, but it was a start to protect his family from themselves, he decided, before sleep caught him once more. Thank you all for listening. Again, this story was Apologize, Part 6 of the Dark Side Logan series, written by Nad98. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.